Evening folks, and welcome to the match review for Middlesbrough 0, Leeds United 1, and the results tonight probably couldn't have gone any better for Leeds United. Burnley drawing and Sheffield United losing at home to Millwall means that Leeds United are back at the top of the league. I've no voice after doing the watch along over on Big Up. Massive thanks to everyone who joined me over there, but a nervy enough game. We made hard work of it, but 3 points is 3 points, and points over performances at this point of the season are far more important right now. And we needed to show a little bit of grit and a little bit of steel, and towards the back end of that game we definitely did. Overall, I would say not a brilliant performance by any stretch of the imagination, but as I also say, points are far more important, and Leeds did enough after a really strong start in the first half and a second half that had us all living on the nerves a little bit towards the back end of it. But going through this, Leeds came out to a really strong start, and Dan James getting on the end of a really good Manor Solomon cross, the kind of stuff you want to see from Manor Solomon in games, getting past his marker and getting balls in from narrow angles towards the end line, right across the box. They caused havoc. We saw that against us in the second half, but Dan James was on the back post to tap in. Really good game from Ethan Ampadu at the back as well. He was finding those little gaps to tread those passes through, and I thought the back two specifically were really good, and definitely helped Leeds to build up from the back. Joe Rodon every now and then with a bit of a burst forward when Leeds needed tempo, but a defensive pivot in the middle of the park was designed to keep the likes of Morris and Hackney quiet, and for the first half I thought Leeds did everything to win that midfield battle, but in the second half the midfield started to look a little bit leggy, and that should be understandable. That should be understood because Ilya Groove hasn't played a lot of football recently, was coming in cold. El Tanaka has played a lot of football recently, so legs were going to be an issue there, and we saw Daniel Farke bring on Josh Gilavogi towards the back end of that for Aronson when he could have easily changed one of their two central midfielders. But as a defensive pairing, doing a defensive job for the first half, I thought they did really well to keep Morris and Hayden Hackney very quiet. Hayden Hackney, for me, one of the best central midfield players in the division, and didn't do a whole lot much until the back end of the second half in that game. But as I say, really strong start from Leeds United. You wanted to see Leeds push on, try and get a second goal, and they did get that second goal when El Tanaka tapped in at the back post, only to see that goal ruled off for offside by the linesman. The replays showing that Tanaka was not only onside but was comfortably onside as well, and that goal should have stood, which would have given Leeds a justifiable 2-0 lead at that point. After that, the momentum started to shift, and Borough got into the game and started to create their own chances and put Leeds under a fair amount of pressure. Plenty of ball in wide areas, but Leeds' low block, or mid block you could call it, at points in the first half was enough to keep them in the wide areas and stop the ball from coming into the box. And when it did come in, Ampadu and Rodon dealt with it, and Carl Darlow, when he had to catch the ball, caught it and calmed things down nicely. Second half was a very different performance from Leeds, less dominant completely, and a lot more sitting back from Leeds. You wanted to see that strong start to the second half, and I thought they did start the second half relatively quickly as well, and looked like they could go on and put a second past Middlesbrough. But as the half went on, Leeds slowed down and dropped off, and that gave Middlesbrough a chance to come into the game. The midfield too starting to get tired. Brendan Aronson also got through an awful lot of running today, not an awful lot of quality in the number 10 position, but a very compact area. Their Leeds struggled in and around the edge of the box when it got compact today, whereas Borough, when they had it in those compact areas, were much happier and much more comfortable with the types of players that they have in their opposition. So the midfield for me went out of it a little bit in the second half. We saw Hackney get far more involved, and was starting to find those passes into Finn Azaz's feet, and you don't want to be giving Finn Azaz room near the edge of the box, and Leeds had started to let Hackney and Azaz pick up the ball on the edge of the box and find gaps for shots. Luckily, most of them being blocked, but we were dropping, and there was some point for concern halfway through that second half. Daniel Farke rang the changes, and again we didn't see Larry Ramazani come on. Daniel Farke making a very clear point at this stage. Isaac Schmidt coming on the right back position, on the right wing position for Dan James. We saw Solomon come off for Willie Nonto, and then we saw Sam Byron come on to give a little bit more defensive structure in there. Junior Firpo had a very good first half, but again, as the second half went on, there were gaps starting to form, and Bergzog was starting to find those little gaps to get in behind them. So from that perspective, a sensible choice to make, bringing Byram in, which added more height as well, and we saw him win a couple of headers in the box towards the back end of the second half as well, which was good. Borough had 3 good chances though in the middle of the second half, all unopposed by Leeds. Leeds just let them into the game in that spell. Again, maybe getting a little bit tired, but Middlesbrough got hold of the game. Bergzog probably should have had 2 goals, or at least had 2 shots on target. Carl Darlow standing up strong when he needed to block one of them as well, but wasteful for Middlesbrough from that perspective, and they probably should have put Leeds to the sword. Leeds then get a breakaway. Isaac Schmidt does really well, breaks out from Leeds and finds a lovely ball in front of Willie Nonta, who checks in on his right foot, and a little reverse pass gets Patrick Bamford in behind, who has his back to the keeper, and a little spin from Bamford and a lovely left foot shot finds its way into the back of the net and then instantly ruled out for offside, which when you see a flag go up for offside on Pat Bamford, you assume he's probably offside. And the replay showed he was a half a yard onside, and Leeds should have been 3-0 up at that point. But again, a linesman making the decision to raise the flag, and the commentary team, for once on Sky, very much on Leeds' side on this, saying the decisions on both halves were shocking decisions by the linesmen. A point that was made by Baron Cross as well is the linesman in the first half is the same linesman who has ruled 2 other Leeds goals that should have stood out for offside, and he's done it again tonight. I'm sure Daniel Farke will talk about it. Leeds in a nice big huddle towards the end of the game as the final whistle went over in front of the Leeds fans. A fantastic moment, but Leeds did enough to get over the line today, and that's what it should be. It's a case of just getting over the line. We did that. Not, I would say, the most convincing away performance, but I would have taken a draw probably a couple of weeks ago against Middlesbrough, but getting a win on the road, which was needed. It's now back in our hands. I know everyone was saying it was still in our hands after the last game, knowing that Burnley and Sheffield United have to play each other, but then you still have to better at least one of their results along the way, assuming one of those teams could win that game. But Leeds have managed to get that all-important 3 points on the road against a side that I didn't think they would get it. I thought it'd be a much tougher game for Leeds, but they did enough. They've done enough, and they battled today, and the battle is a massive part of it. Not a pretty game of football, very sloppy from Leeds, especially towards the last 15-20 minutes of that game. They had all of us absolutely living on our nerves, but they did enough, and that's all that matters right now, to hold Middlesbrough to a nice big 0 and give Leeds a 1-0 win, which should have been a 3-0 win. 2 very good goals by Tanaka. And I feel sorry for Pat Bamford. He's been out for most of this season. He's had a couple of false starts this year. He's starting to look like he can make an impression towards the back end of the season. He gets his goal. That's taken away from him for no other reason except for a flag-happy linesman. But poor officiating again by the referee and the linesman. The referee giving some strange decisions as well. Corners and goal kicks, and they should have gone the other way. So, yeah, weird one. But again, wrap this up by saying 3 points to Leeds, and that's all that matters. We're top of the league table as it stands. Preston North End coming up at the weekend, and we know that Burnley and Sheffield United still have to play each other. Chris Wilder's decision to slate every single one of his team after their last game has possibly come back to bite them on the backside, and losing at home. Will he have more criticism for his fan base? Daniel Farke taking the more protective approach, and may have been good enough to get Leeds over the line today, but this is not done and dusted. There was a lot of football still to play, and no doubt there'll be a couple of twists and turns between now and the end of the season. But Leeds have now got a home game against Preston North End this weekend, and will want to add another 3 points there and keep the pressure on everybody else. A 2-point gap now to Sheffield United in third place gives Leeds a little bit of breathing room with games running out thick and fast, and hopefully it's enough for Leeds to get over the line. But there we go. Leeds United 1-0 winners on the road at the Riverside, and win 6 consecutive games, league games, against Middlesbrough now on the trot, so that's great to see as well. And we'll see how we get on against Preston North End at the weekend, folks. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll be back tomorrow morning for the news, if there is any news to cover. We also have the preview on Thursday night, with Andrew Dalton for the game against Preston North End. I've talked too much tonight. I'm done. I'm finished. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll talk to you in the morning. See you then. See ya. Bye.